AFC North. We'll start with the Steelers at 8.5 wins. Charles, Pittsburgh Steelers, who we've talked about a little bit this summer, but where are you at as we launch into the season?
I mean, I would say under, but I would have said under any other year over the past few years too. I mean, they just seem to defy logic. They're always like 10-7 with minus 500 point differential somehow. It makes no sense. I don't think that this is a good team right now. I just don't think they're kind of in the middle of a rebuild that they haven't fully admitted that they're in the middle of yet. We'll see what happens with the Brandon Ayuk trade. I don't think that that's something they need to be doing right now. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense.
I can't believe we're still talking about him. August 27th, we're recording this.
And I will appreciate that he has at least just kind of disappeared for a little bit. That has been good. But I think the Steelers are set up to look good on offense again in like 3 years.
I thought you were gonna say next year.
No. Let's not get crazy. I mean, dude, you got a long way to go, right? George Pickens, as funny as the memes are, still got a long way to go before you talk about like a true bona fide number one. His number two is either Van Jefferson, who was not good at all with the Falcons last year, or Calvin Austin, who our friend Stephen Ruiz, every time we make a Madden league, he drafts Calvin Austin at receiver and puts him at running back because he's 5'7". It
actually works.
It works.
It does.
But here we go. We got Zach Frazier, who looked pretty well as a rookie at center in the preseason.
I'm glad you mentioned him because he's looking good. Yeah, he looks good at center right now. But continue. I'm sorry.
Troy Fautanu at right tackle. I still like to see him at guard, but looking at the composition of the offensive line, I get why he's playing tackle right now. Broderick Jones is, he's still up or down, but he's still a really young guy that's still kind of growing into his body. So I wouldn't be completely out on that yet. I would say you probably have two at least. You might have a left tackle a left tackle center, and then Fautanu playing tackle or guard for the future. That's a good setup. Everything else here is pretty bad though. Like outside of Jaylen Warren, maybe. Like I'm not a really big Najee Harris guy. Not a big Russell Wilson guy. Like if I were them, I would start Justin Fields and say, we're going to run for 3,000 yards and only throw if it's 3rd and 7+.
Sounds like a fan of the old Vic Duckett work done offenses in Atlanta.
Dude, I met work done at the NFLPA party that we went to, and I was trying not to fangirl. Like I really was.
He's a great guy.
Great guy.
Great guy. Yeah, work done. But I Steelers has just been kicking around my brain because it's just I want to see what it looks like with Smith and Arthur Smith and these quarterbacks. I'm with you that I feel like Fields is the better dice roll. Seems like they're going to go with Russell because maybe that gives them the play to, now we're going with Justin. I feel like it's harder to go back, the reverse way. You got to think of these things with the coaches and how they think too, because it's always CYA. Cover your ass. But I'm glad you mentioned Frazier. As you can tell, I'll cut you off with it. But Frazier, I looked good, like really looked good in the preseason. I knew you ready to rock, early in his career. Steelers are always not going to play their rookies early on. They make you work for it. It's kind of really good to see him kind of solidify that spot. I'm pretty excited about the beef on offense, even if it's not going to be the sexiest offense in the world. They're trotting out 3 tight ends with Darnell Washington at 270, Michael Pruitt at 260, Pat Freiermuth at 260. Pickens is the lone receiver. And I was like, okay, all right, that'll get me going a little bit. But again, that's more fun than good kind of thing. And that's kind of what I get back to with the offense. Me as a football X's and O's nerd, I'm going to really like it. I'm learning my lesson from the Falcons last year, but it's like, yes, I'm going to like the run game. They're going to do some cool stuff, but it's just the passing game. Anytime they're going to be past 3rd and 7, they're properly screwed, and you can't win that way. You can't win. You can win some games, but you can't win. There's no reliable passing game that can get you off the field or keep drives going, I should say. Yeah, that's just hard for me to kind of like really anoint you or do anything, even if I do like the run game. And I do like the defense. You still got Micah Fitzpatrick, still got TJ Watt, still got Hayward, still got plenty of second-year guys that I won't spoil too much. A lot of defensive talent that I really like. It's just that, again, quarterback is very important. That's going to lift you up and bring you down, too, if it's not a great instance. Like, here it might not be.
What's his name? The wide receiver, Deontay Johnson.
Johnson,
traded to the Panthers for Dante Jackson from the Panthers. So they swapped the wide receiver for a CB. That trade, like, as much as it was a desperate need for the cornerback room that they needed last year, because last year we were like, you got Joey Porter Jr. and what else? Okay, you got Dante Jackson, who's probably like a CB3 ideally, but it's better than what you had last year.
They've had worse, yeah.
But at the same time, that was a huge loss to the wide receiver group. Because they don't really have much outside of them. But then when you just look at the cornerback rooms, I get why you did it. Because if you didn't trade for Dante Jackson, what were you going to do? Like, you probably would have had to take a cornerback in the first round. I mean, they're still slated to start potentially an undrafted rookie, Beanie Bishop Jr., a nickelback this year, according to our lads. It's like kind of like the Raiders defense, like we talked about earlier. Good players, but pretty incomplete. I will say though, the Patrick Queen, Landon Roberts duo is
that's
hilarious.
What I was just about to talk about. So keep going on.
Hilarious. It's min-maxing like Thunder and Lightning duos.
Yes, it really is. Like all the way. You just got oh my God, just a sawed-off shotgun and just the sleek samurai sword that you don't know which way it's cutting. Queen's going to hit somebody who doesn't know. You don't know what team is going to be on. Like, but he's going to go full speed and hit it.
His sheep is still in Baltimore.
I know that's his brain still in Baltimore. And they have Micah Fitzpatrick. Like, Fitzpatrick is such a wild card because he's gonna he is one of those guys who just has a booster on everybody around, but it's a little weird in the middle there for the Pittsburgh defense. I'm glad you mentioned it. Like, my second year guys are Keanu Benton and Joey Porter Jr. I think that's easy for anybody because I think those guys are standout players, potential Pro Bowl type players, and they're going to be both in their not this year, but maybe sometime in their career. But man, they hit on both of those guys from last year's draft, and they look like very good starters. Another Badger mentioned, got to throw that in there. Also, shout out James Daniels, their guard. It's actually been okay. I've second mentioned this summer about him. Actually been okay this preseason. I have no idea if he's going to become anything, but I do want to give him a shout out. Any other guys you want to highlight before we maybe make our picks?
Roman Wilson, about to get a lot of targets. We're going to see real quick. I mean, dude, I don't see why he couldn't get in the starting lineup at some point over Calvin Johnson or Van Jefferson. And if he can't, you need to draft someone else immediately next year.
Roman Wilson was like a dirty work number 3 for me. You know, like a third down chain mover, dirty work guy. But it's not like I didn't see him as like a real 2. You know, like it's just more of a high end 3. So just. I like it though. Under.
Can't score enough points.
I'm gonna go under. I originally had over. I'm gonna go under too. I'm betting against the Tomlin voodoo at my own risk. I hit it last year, so maybe that was my one time to go I'm going against the grain because it's the Steelers. You could use it so much, but in 6 months we'll be just going, God, the Steelers, they're making the playoffs. They're the 7 seed once again, 9-8. Making the playoffs again. Next up, 8.5 wins. Browns. Cleveland Browns. Where are you at with the Browns right now, Charles?
Are they ever going to get anything out of that quarterback? They paid like $250 million to, fully guaranteed.
I have a quarterback stat.
Like, dude, if not, then who cares? The defense is going to be good. They have way too many good players on defense to not at least be like top 5 again. But until Deshaun Watson plays well, it doesn't matter. And we've talked about it a bunch offline, but he's only played in 12 games as a Browns quarterback.
$150,000 a snap. That's how much he's made. If really it all comes down to that, because you look at the defense, even if they're not one of the best defenses of the top 20 years, like they were statistically last year, they still look like what you said, look like a top 5 defense to me, just because they have D-line and pass rusher depth. They have a competent defense coordinator, a good defense coordinator, I'd say, can get caught against some offenses, but still, I don't think there's going to be drop off there. And workable linebackers. They have JOK, who's unique and good for this defense. They have a really good DB room, and the baseline for the offense is high. It's kind of like the Bears defense a little bit, where it's like there's a lot of good, solid starters here. Even if I'm not super high on the receivers, like Amari, I think is more of a 2. Amari Cooper. I've never been high on Judy. I think he's a 3. I like Tillman a little bit, but who knows? Because it seems like they want to bring everybody else in, but I'm hoping Cedric Tillman ends up being something. But it comes down to the quarterback. It's this team. This is a lot of money to pay for a quarterback that last year, and this is not the end all be all stat, but it's just a nice stat right now for what I'm trying to present about how Deshaun Watson has played. He had a QBR last year of 42.9. 50 is average. Okay. So below average, first and foremost. It's adjusted for season, all these things. Only quarterbacks that he was better than with that 42.9. Sam Howell, Aiden O'Connell, Desmond Ridder, who, we just talked about that. Kenny Pickett, Mac Jones, Bryce Young, Will Levis, Zach Wilson, and Josh Dobbs. So
Super
you
Bowl
have
winners.
Traded guy that is backing up Gardner Minshew right now. Traded in the cut, traded. We'll see, but it looks like a pretty rough number 1 overall pick. Will Levis, we'll see. That was a half season. We'll see with him. Wilson traded. Dobbs traded like 15 times. And that's fine when you just go, okay, that's the 22nd best quarterback. We got plenty around him to win games. Not when you pay this guy this much money, guaranteed money, and you're pointing at a game like the Ravens game and going like, oh, that's the game we're building off of. And it's all screens and underneath stuff. So,
dude, that's the most overrated performance ever, man. It's just,
when you have to
I think his
latch onto
A-dot
that,
was
man.
like 3 yards in that game too.
It's just, yeah. And with so much with the Browns too, it's just, now they're doing the whole, we're going to trade Jameis thing. But I really want to keep an eye on this here is like, when are they pulling the ripcord on this, or what is the next step of the Deshaun Watson ordeal? Like is it more than just us here on a podcast going like, really, we're doing this, as opposed to them going like, hey, we have to figure out an exit plan, because it's such a crazy contract. And this season is really, this is the crossroads season. It has to be.
Dude, we were just talking about Aaron Rodgers earlier and how you're like, it's been so long. It's been longer for Deshaun Watson. And I know obviously he's not nearly as old as Aaron Rodgers and doesn't have the injury history, but he's played 12 games as a Browns quarterback. He's played 12 games since 2020. That's 4 years ago at this point, 3 seasons ago. The guy in 2020, before all that other stuff happened, he was legitimately insanely good. Like that 2020 season,
top 5 guy.
That's a quarterback you trade 3 first-round picks for. But he hasn't been anything close to that since then. And if he's going to keep playing like this, you'll never win a Super Bowl.
No.
And the thing is, when people are getting excited about Joe Flacco, dude, Joe Flacco was not actually good last year. He just made more throws than Deshaun Watson.
And he was just launching bombs. He was just like, and it was just high variance play. It worked out for him. Like, that's all it was. But it was still better. And God, I just looked at his contract too. And it's like, I mean, they can't even really they have so many void years with it, because they're kind of going from the bank of Deshaun and everything.
Yeah, they've had to move money around. Can't really move around. Nice job.
Yeah, I know. Nice job. I know. Hey, shoot, weren't you looking at, because we're doing the first and second year players, I had Cedric Tillman because I of that last year draft class, or that draft class in 2023 with the receivers was not a great draft class. He was the only like X that I thought could maybe be something, but that's all I had. And you kind of were looking at the Browns draft history and kind of going, not much overall to pick from here. There
might be legitimately 0 hits in the 2 years for the Browns. If you go back since 2022, when like the first round pick deficit started after the Deshaun Watson trade, your best 2 players are
Emerson
1, and I would say Cade York 2, the kicker.
Yeah.
Their 3rd round pick from last year, Siak Ika, was cut today.
Already cut.
Cedric Tillman, they traded for Jerry Jeudy. Do you remember David Bell, the Purdue receiver?
Almost cutting him, right?
I don't know if he made the team, but was drafted in the 3rd round.
Yeah. Yep.
So, dude, they like now if you're the Browns, like you're starting to get to a point where this is getting fragile. I don't know if it's going to show this year. But like when you whiff on 2 straight draft classes, plus the quarterback you traded 3 first-round picks for isn't any good, that creates a very fragile ecosystem, even in a world where you have Myles Garrett and probably the best CB trio in the league.
Right. And a pass and secondary pass rushers that other teams would die for. It's funny. They built a Final Four roster, like a roster that I would say if they had, like, if I know this is different, but like say like a guy like Jordan Love was the quarterback here, we should just go like, holy
Super Bowl,
the Browns, and we're saying I'm going to pick over under 8.5. I am saying that they're going to hit the over, but I think it's a 9-8 team. But that's the difference of what the quarterback play, because I don't even think it's average. I think it's a below average quarterback at best, and that's I get it. He's only played 12 games. That's the problem. When you're paying a guy like this, you know it when you see it. You know what a guy looks like. They're cushioning him and trying to make it as easy as possible for him, and it's still up and down. So yeah, we'll see. It's such a unique situation with it all because they have so many nice pieces on that team. So yeah, but we're still over 8.5 wins. Didn't we both have the Browns as number one defense? I am number one. I think you have number two. Or number three. Yep. I know we're so optimistic about it. So I know
you got a defense. The O-line's good enough. We'll see what happens with Nick Chubb, but like
got some okay play callers. Like you got like a lot here. I know.
Dude, but that's how bad he's been. It's whatever.
It's almost like quarterback's important. It really is. Moving on to the next team is the Cincinnati Bengals at 10.5 wins. Charles, Cincinnati Bengals. Where do you want to start with them?
I think this is tough because this division is tough. I don't.
Yeah.
This is the only AFC division where every team has at least 8.5 projected win total. So this is, as we know, the AFC North is no slouch. It feels like it's never really actually been bad at any point in my life. The Browns have been bad
because the Browns both growing up on what Ravens, Bengals, and Ravens Steelers our entire lives, right? Yeah,
dude, I miss going to the Ravens Steelers games in like early 2010s. Man, they were.
How many points did you see? 10.
I was at the game where Mike Tomlin tried to trip Jacoby Jones and then played dumb. I didn't know if Mike Tomlin was going to make it home that night.
I lived in Pittsburgh when that happened. I was at a bar in Pittsburgh when that happened because it was like a Thursday night game. I
remember I was home visiting. I was visiting home for some reason. Me and my friend from high school went to the game, and when Mike walked out on their field during the kickoff, I thought people were going to kidnap him before the game was over. But that's what makes it so beautiful. Back to the Bengals, though. I don't know. Because, like I said, it's tough because the division's good. I would probably go under just because, the defense might struggle. Joe Burrow's just coming back from injury. But I do see them in like that 9 or maybe like the 10-7, 11-6 tier because they're going to be able to score points again. If they can copy and paste the offense they ran last year with Jake Browning and put Joe Burrow in there, that should score a whole lot of points. Jamar Chase is back at practice, so it looks like he's going to play even without having the contract resolved. So
makes you feel better.
This is still a quality team. There's a whole lot of stars on it. I don't know how to feel about the defense, but I do think they can score enough points to get to 10-7. And if Amarius Mims can get healthy and lock down that right tackle spot, that would be absolutely huge for their offense.
Burrow's Burrow, and they have some real weapons. There's been some brain drain with the offensive staff, but this offensive staff has earned a lot of respect for me. It's not been like my ideal offense or anything, but from what Taylor first did with Burrow when he was that first year they're starting the Super Bowl run, I always thought it was the term I always came back to is a super siloed offense. If they were under center, they were running the ball, and I bet you money they're running a zone run. If they were gun, they were passing the ball, and they were just like second down, they're under center. It was like 100% run. It was just crazy, their tells and tendencies, and it's because Joe Burrow does not like to throw the ball from under center. As a long-legged bad athlete, I kind of just want to be like, Burrow, you're much better athlete than me. Like, go get your ass under center and go do it, man. Like you can do this. This is much easier, but it's not fun. It's hard to do. It's a lot harder than people realize. That's why Goff gets a little bit more respect from me because of how good he is at it, whipping his head back and everything. But I just thought that this Bengals coaching staff every year, the next year in 2022, they started doing more gun runs and it really added to it. Last year, I feel like they were going to try to do some stuff. The 49ers game, you could see some tweaks. I want to say they played the Cardinals as well, and you could see they did some tweaks as well, which is what they're putting Jamar Chase more in the slot, more in the number 3 spot. They do like a 1-by-3 formation. Tight end's a solo receiver, and then they put slot or Chase basically where a tight end would normally be, and that worked a little bit. And I just like that they added stuff that they're not just going, hey, status quo is okay. The thing is Burrow healthy? Is he? I know we can say that he is and he's going to play and everything. It's just that there's a lot of warning signs here. He was messing with a glove, I believe. He keeps getting banged up with some stuff. So I just have some concerns with that. I do trust him. I do trust the staff, though, that they're going to do some fun stuff. I think the run game will still be efficient no matter who's the running back because of just the looks they get because of Burrow and these receivers and the respect they get from other teams. So, but my negatives is Joe okay? How will the back end play on defense? They gave up so many explosive plays last year. One of the most leaky defenses in the league. Can they stop the run? Not really the questions you want. Is your quarterback healthy? Can you stop the run? And can you stop giving up explosive passes? So not really the questions you want to have, but I do like him. I do like the offensive layers, moving Chase around. I like Mims, like you mentioned him. He's a little nice insurance, even if he's battled injuries already. But I'm still going to go under 10.5 wins, even if I think this team is more of a 9-win, 10-win team that still is technically under 10.5. So that's how I ended up on the Bengals.
Yeah, the young player outside of like Amarius Mims and maybe Miles Murphy to watch, I would say, and this might be a deep cut, Chase Brown, their 5th round pick from last year.
Good shout.
Dude, I remember I started looking into him because I traded him to Solak in our fantasy league, and Solak was like,
always starts, man.
Yeah, dude, he was taunting me about it. So I was like, man, what the hell is this? Let me go check this guy out. And yeah, he's not bad. And I think that, dude, Zach Moss did not play well last year when he was in for Jonathan Taylor with the Colts. I think that this running back room is not all that inspiring, but maybe Chase Brown could be a guy that the fantasy nerds and the stats nerds would say, see, this is why you should never, ever take a running back before like the 4th round.
Hey, I want to know who was advanced, who was part of the Moneyball trend in drafting. It was the old Mike Tice. Took a bunch of running backs in the 4th round, drafted a bunch of defensive linemen, the Randy ratio. Check it up to your best player. Yeah, he was on the forefront.
I was a big Mewelde Moore guy in Madden.
Legitimately one of my favorite. Legitimately, like it's kind of a little bit of a meme or running joke for me, but legitimately one of my favorite football players ever. Just one of the smartest football players I've been around. And at running back too, and just could do everything. Love me some Mewelde Moore. All right, we got one more team. Oh, you did? Yeah, I do. Charlie Jones, their 2nd-year receiver, good returner. I do want to give him a shout out. All right, last team. We almost did it. 15-16. We're on 16 now. That is the Baltimore Ravens. 10.5 wins. The defending AFC wins total winner.
AFC North champion.
AFC North champion. Thank you. They won the President's Cup, which is, they got the most wins. But we'll go with the Ravens. Where are you at with them right now, Charles, with the Baltimore Ravens?
I'm thinking slightly over. Like they're in the same conundrum as the other 3 teams where they all have to play each other. So, you're going to start beating each other to death a little bit as the season goes along. But I know we talked about the offensive line concerns. I'm still concerned. I don't really get why it's crazy to be concerned about the offensive line. Like, dude, you're telling me you're starting a guy who's a 2nd-year, 7th round pick next to Ronnie Stanley? Yeah, I'm going to be a little concerned about that. But they have Lamar Jackson. They have Derrick Henry. I would say if you needed any 2 players in your backfield to deal with a terrible or a shaky offensive line, those are probably 2 of the best that you can get.
Literally one of my bullet points. You verbatim took it like off of that. Yeah, like keep going. But literally a point I was going to make too.
Because, dude, honestly, what I love as a millennial football fan, someone who started watching the game in like 2000, that Ravens' first Super Bowl year was basically when I started watching football. I still love these guys who can take like 300 carries every year and they keep coming back. And dude, Derrick Henry's still a good player, even with all the mileage on his body. Now you get concerned, like, could you fall off a cliff at any second? Maybe, but I do think that even playing with someone like Lamar will help, make his career a little bit longer. Receiver room, a little shaky. We'll see what happens with Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers. But I still love the defense. I don't see why Trenton Simpson can't just come in and do the same exact thing that Patrick Queen was doing last year. Point, like when Raquan points somewhere, you go there and you be fast and hit someone.
Pick the center. Thank you. This was what he was really good at last year. The negatives first, I'll start with them, is the offensive line. I put it as lack of offensive line solidification, just to change up the terms. But they're trying to figure out how to get their best 5 out there. I know Linderbaum's battled some injuries and he's coming back, but they're starting Roger Rosengarten, the tackle from Washington, who I wasn't as I liked him, but I wasn't as high as some other people. Some people were acting like Mel Kiper has him like a first rounder. I looked him kind of where he ended up going. And he's solid, and he has some pedigree with him, and I like him. But also, just Ronnie Stanley isn't what he used to be, which was to me one of the best non-quarterbacks in the league. It was just unfortunate. It was just the injury and everything. He's still up and down with that, so it's just questions there. Like you said, though, they have the best quarterback to mitigate this and the best running back to mitigate this. This is what these two do, and Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. I'm so excited to see this run game, see the layers that Todd Monken adds to the offense. How the receivers shake out is anyone guess. Of course, I like Rashad Bateman, but he's a great route runner, but it's all just about being on the field, all being reliable and being out there. How the defense handles a brain drain. I like Zach Orr, heard great things, but it's just really hard to replace that many assistants. It's just hard. It's just being a organizational leader. It's just a really hard thing. It's being a victim of that success. So that's why I just have concerns. But then I look at the back end, it's Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton, two actual star, biggest needle mover defenders in the entire league. And then they got Marcus Williams, Eddie Jackson behind that to make plays. They still got Humphreys. They got
I forgot they signed Eddie Jackson.
Right? And that's cool. Like, because they're going to do so much funky stuff that they can just, they're going to make some plays. They might get caught a couple of times, but they're going to be able to really do some damage. So I struggle with them because it's not like I hate them or I'm like super low on them. I think they take a step back, but I still think this is a really good team because they have a freaking quarterback and they have some good play callers and some good, some pieces on both sides. So just want to see what the layers that they're adding. I want to see how Rosengarten plays, how the whole offensive line plays. I ended up originally had under and then I chickened out and went over because it's like, am I really going to bet against Lamar? And really going to bet against this run game that I think will be fun and really bet against these defensive players that I really like. So I ended up being an over, even if the playoff run might be sketchy, still think this is a good team. How'd you end up? Over or under? You went over on them?
Over. Yeah. I think like 11-6 sounds right. It's just a tough division. But man, I still get so excited when I look at the defense, man. I know that I'm concerned about the brain drain, but they might just have enough good players where they can protect against some of that.
It's real dudes, like not just like, oh, that's a good player. It's a guy that it doesn't matter who the coach is, helps you out.
99 overalls,
Yeah. And
because man, because I go back, I've 20 times, maybe even more than 20, probably like close to like 40 or 50 times. I've gone back and I've watched the Mahomes to Kelsey touchdown on Kyle Hamilton. In the AFC title game. And dude, it's just a perfect play by three players, like, because you can't cover it. Right. You can't cover it any better than that. But then you get, like you said, getting the Marcus Williams, getting the Marlon Humphrey, Roquan Smith is still here. Trent Simpson, who the young player I wanted to point out, I don't see why he can't just do the same thing that Patrick Queen was doing. It's kind of
that's a great call. No, Simpson's a great call. He's a good player. That was a great shout out with you.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even mention like Matt BK, Owe, like all these guys, like
our colleague Kyle Van
Noy. Yes. I know we didn't even give him a shout out. So Yahoo's very own Travis Jones. Like, they have guys. That's why I come back to. It's like, oh yeah, they're taking a step back. Who's stepping up? Well, all right, that works. That's better than most. So yeah, sticking with the over there.